All right, good afternoon, everyone. I was given this great opportunity to begin, and so I want to welcome all of you to this forum this afternoon. I am Alicia Baptiste, and I am under the direction of Mrs. Denrica Lett, who is really our host today. Forum this afternoon. I am Alicia Baptiste, and I am under the so what we are going to do today is we are going to actually have a discussion about, uh, is marriage still attractive to the unmarried person? Is marriage still attractive, to the unmarried person? We've been hearing so much about marriage and those who don't want to get married. This discussion actually came about with a post that was made by one of our panelists, and it was so interesting. And as a result of that, we all came together and we decided to have this session today. So we want to jump in, waiting while we await our hostess. We want to jump in and just find out from the panelists. Just introduce yourself quickly so that, the WWW will know you, and those who are viewing, you're going to have a little insight of who we are. So, you go right ahead and introduce yourself. I'm going to start with Carol. Carol.
Hi, good night, everyone. My name is Carol Boyce. Just a little about myself. I'm a youth pastor, also a youth mentor. I've been mentoring. I have a passion to mentor males or young males. I am married to one wife. I have two daughters, one age 4 and one age 1 a year and some months. Right? I've been married for just over 7 years to Afia boys.
Wonderful, just over 7 years. So he's coming in with new experiences for us and to share. One thing he missed out is from the beautiful island of Tobago. All right, let's not forget that romantic place, Tobago. Thank you so much, Carol. Charissa?
Hi, everyone. My name is Charissa Sealey, and I am 26. I am a worship minister at my local church and in general. I'm also a YouTuber. I have a channel based on faith, love, and lifestyle. So all those things combined. I'm single, so I guess I'll be coming from that perspective as well in this discussion. And I'm really excited to just have this awesome time with my fellow panelists, and I'm very interested because in terms of what's going to come out of today. So that's me.
Thank you so much. And we have Mr. Jason.
Thank you very much, Alicia, and good afternoon, everybody. Is everybody hearing me clearly? Yeah?
Yeah.
Great. My name is Jason Leach. I am a PhD candidate at the University of Ottawa. Before that, I did things at the Caribbean Nazarene College. And before that, I did things at the University of the West Indies. I think that's a nice summary. I am, well, let's see, Carissa puts age inside of this, so I am 42 and unmarried. And I suppose we'll get to that as the discussion goes along with this. That's me in summary.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I will just then tell you who am I. I am Alicia Baptiste. I'm a pastor and I'm a counselor. I am also, I am mature now to think about marriage. I'm 48 years old and I am unmarried. So my question to you guys is marriage still attractive to the unmarried? Because as we have it, we have 3 unmarried persons here, and I'm betting that we have a lot of unmarried persons in, you know, in the land of technology, and those who are married. So tell me, let's talk. Is marriage still attractive? Anyone?
Thanks very much, Alicia, for the bringing on the introductions for the topic. But I think let's get to the hard questions. I mean, you're a counselor, as you said. You would have dealt with many people. How do you think people's experiences affects their attractiveness to marriage?
I think it affects the attractiveness in both a positive way and a negative way. For example, there are those who may have, grew up in an environment that, seeing a marriage, they saw a lot of positive things in that marriage. They saw both a mother and a father working together to contribute to their well-being and to ensure their development was well-rounded. But then you have those relationships where you don't have an example of how a marriage should really look. And, I am one, I believe in transparency. So I can speak from my point of view, not having parents to nurture me. I grew up in a, all-female home. So having that level of control as a woman, as a young lady growing up. So it was, is this what it really is? Is this what life is? Until you realize that it's more than that. And you realize that marriage, I came to the understanding that, yes, I wanted to get married. I had a desire to be a wife and a child. In school, when they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always wanted to be a housewife, a wife, a mother, And today, up to now, 48, I'm not seeing that as yet, but I know it's somewhere in the horizon. But, the desire was always there. But I don't know if the nurturing came with it. And I want to believe that the nurturing did not come with it.
Right. Charissa, what do you think? And as a youngest person on the panel, how does experience, and because especially in the church, I mean, did the experience you have attract you to marriage in terms of the examples?
I was actually thinking when Sister Auntie Alicia, I don't know what to call you on the live.
Go right ahead, Auntie.
Was talking about it. I was thinking, how faith plays a part in whether you're attracted to marriage or not, or if it plays a part at all. And so for me, growing up, seeing healthy marriages around did shape my idea of wanting to get married. To be honest, I was one of those persons, 18. I want to get married by 18. I was thinking, and every time I reached the age, I reached 18, I was like, all right, well, 21. And I reached 21, I was like, 23. You might not do it, but 23. And, I'm 26 now. But I think having those experiences really does shape you. But I think the challenging thing, though, especially when you grow up in a circle where everything is supposed to be good or nice, when you see like marriages from the inside and you realize like persons put up this kind of front, you wonder, is this something I actually want to, enter into, where outside you smile for everybody else, but the home, there are lots of, unspoken things that are happening that is like, I don't know if I would want to have that, so I've seen that, and thankfully I have, great parents, but obviously no marriage is perfect. So even where instances they may have fallen short, or where I would have observed like my friends and their parents, stuff that they would have gone through, it really sometimes challenges you. So I think your experience does really impact whether or not you want to get married. And for me, my faith also impacted that, because once I realized how God designed our society to be, it became more and more attractive to me.
Right. So we're hearing positive experiences in terms of examples. And then, Alicia also mentioned nurturing, and how that impacted her. And So the thing is, life is a mix. It's not a cut and dry, okay, I'm only seeing positive examples, I'm only seeing negative examples. You have the positive examples and you have the negative examples. So to me, it really comes down to your choice. So don't allow the examples of others to tell you, okay, this is how marriage is supposed to be, or your marriage is going to be. It comes down to you choosing, okay, making the choice to make your marriage a healthy marriage and for it to be different. But how do you make that choice when you don't even know where to begin? Jason, you could probably pop in here. I know with your podcast, you spoke about, men beginning to have to talk and have a conversation, because some men and women also, but, women, they more talk about it. They don't really have an idea because of the negative examples they had, in terms of getting into a healthy marriage and being attracted to marriage. So what do you think?
This is my opinion. Marriage was never an important thing for me. Right? It was never a goal that I had. I believe in marriage, or rather, I believe that the people who want to be married should get married. But it was never a thing for me. I can't say that it was because of the example. I have noticed within my circles, the people who grew up in single parent homes were the last to get married. And I grew up in a single home. So I grew up seeing self-sufficient. To the extent that that impacted me, I can't see. But it was never something that it wasn't one of my goals. But I say kudos to those who want to get married. Definitely do that if that is something you want to do.
Sorry. And the thing is too, whether you're married or you're not married, life is challenging. You have trouble. God spoke about it in John 16:33 that, in this life you will have trouble, but he has overcome the world. So whether you're single or you're married, there are challenges in life. Carol, a lot of people are getting married because they want to be happy, because they see other married people on social media and they're thinking hashtag goals, and they're thinking that's their reality, when it's just a picture, 1 second of their life, and they're thinking, I want to be happy too. A lot of people are attracted to marriage because they want to be happy. What do you think about that?
I think that's a wrong goal. I just want to make it clear that my bias or my perspective is from a biblical standpoint, because I'm a pastor. I believe that God designed marriage and he gives the policies, the rules, the guidelines for the institution. And if we're gonna look at marriage through a correct lens, we need to work through the lens of God, right? And from a biblical perspective, the objective or the goal of marriage is not happiness. So persons who have it in their mind that they're going after marriage to gain happiness, I think they're gonna bounce their head, right? I think that one of the ways that God crucifies us or kills us, and I don't mean that literally, is with marriage. Because in a marriage institution, you can't be narcissistic. You can't come in there for what you could get. You're coming in there for what you could give. And you have to die. There are many compromises that you would have to make as an individual so that that institution can survive. And I think that the goal of marriage is actually becoming one. And I think that happiness is a byproduct of becoming one. That once you and your spouse begin to mesh and start understanding each other and start operating in that understanding of each other, And I think that a byproduct of that is going to be that you're going to be happy. But don't make happiness the goal, because then your marriage would fail and then people would start blaming people. But that is why a lot of people separate, because they're with somebody who the person is not making them happy, and then they start blaming the person for the reason why they're not happy, and then they start searching for someone else to make them happy.
So if the goal of marriage is not about happiness and it's becoming one, but you also said, Charissa, don't get scared. You would have the happy moments, and there are, that is a byproduct of it. That is one of the benefits of it, but it's not the goal of marriage. And really and truly, another person really cannot make you happy. Alicia, probably you could tell us about that in terms of a counselor, people looking to other people to make them happy. Probably that is why some people are unattracted to marriage, because they see that there are challenges and they want to be happy all the time.
Right. And let's clarify, if someone wants to be happy all the time, that is unrealistic, because the reality is we would always have different emotions. You will not always be happy, and from one stance, happiness is temporal. Happiness is, I get some good rum and raisin ice cream, and that suffices. And by the time that tastes gone, that's it. I'm looking for something else to turn to. So if persons are getting married based on happiness, we know that will not last. Usually I would ask a lot of persons, why do you really want to get married? And most times you would hear, well, I love the person. I want to make this person happy. I want to, it's always what I want to do. And very rare you hear, what really is the crux of marriage. And I think even here, before we could even think about marriage, we have to think about the individual and, that person who you are hoping to come into your life. You have to know actually who you are, because we can talk about marriage and see how attractive it is, but are we as an individual, are we attractive for ourselves? And
Sure.
when I'm speaking physical attraction, I'm speaking, that emotional attraction, that intelligence attraction, the psychological attraction, all the things, the facets that would make a person. Is that something that matters? Because one of the things I recognize, and we spoke about it, or we would have mentioned it on a whole, is the whole nature of marriage on the foundation of one's faith. If it is attractive, so you look at your faith, you look at the environment, but if we were to be true to ourselves, is marriage really attractive? Now, we could say yes, but the world might say no, because when you look at the divorce rate, when you look at what is happening, a lot of people would say, no, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. And you're finding more and more there's a delay in getting married now. Charissa, at one time I had 18, 21, 24, as the case may be, yes? And I was telling one of my mentors recently, I think at this age, I am now understanding what marriage really is about. It's about selflessness, not selfishness, because oftentimes we go in, I want to please this person, but I want them to please me too, so it's...
Right. So it's like, what about they go in with these expectations, like, this is what I want to come out of marriage. And if you don't meet that expectation, then okay, bye. Really, as Carol and yourself said, is about, that self-sacrificial love and unconditional love of the person. And as you kind of touched on it in terms of selflessness, the Bible also talks about submission. And, men have a way, or even women, I would say, we avoid that word, but men were meant to be the leaders of the home. And in some cases, some men are unattracted to marriage because they don't see them. I don't know, is it because, Jason, help me here, I'm looking for the word. Why are some men unattracted to marriage, especially when they begin to think about leading, being the leader?
It's a very interesting lead up to that question. You know, I mean, men not seeing themselves as leaders, and then they come to me.
Well, I was lost for
Sorry, am I
words, so
frozen? Or am I still there? Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, my internet is really, really dodgy.
Where are you?
Am I still?
Alicia, you're unmuted, huh?
I'm saying we could have Carol answer in the meantime while Jason sorts it out.
Another panelist here.
It's right down, Carol.
Sorry about that, folks.
That's okay, Jason.
I have community internet, so it does that. So I think if we're talking, right, everybody is getting married later. That's a fact of this generation, and it's people are getting married later because there was an argument that marriage provided security, so you get the kind of security that you needed from a man. Now we have women who are financially and otherwise very independent. So there is no need to get into a relationship for the at least financial security. Then we have just the general cost of living. And the truth of the matter is divorce is also very expensive. So people figure, you know what, I will probably not get married because I don't want to get divorced. I want to hold on to the things that I have. And so while women are becoming more educated, more independent, men are still doing things as well. So you have these two people coming together. And from my observation, so this is not empirical, it seems as if men and women are in a constant battle. So you ask yourself, why am I going to put myself in a situation where I'm going to have to be battling somebody all the time? Right. And you don't. You know what I mean? So it is not necessarily an issue of somebody seeing themselves as less of a leader. Sometimes you're just protecting your peace. And, we could talk about all the examples and whatever, internal struggles. But, I can say for me, and the thing is, I might turn up married tomorrow. So this is not me being anti-married. I just say, I am very comfortable with my company. So I don't want to get married to somebody that will make me uncomfortable. Understand? If I am by myself, I am okay. So I don't know if that speaks to the leadership question per se, but I do think that the dynamics have changed generally, and that filters down everywhere that women are certainly more empowered, and they don't need marriage as a place of security. So then they are going to have to find, and men have to find other reasons why it is they should be married. And I think that that's another thing by itself.
Carol?
Yeah, I feel I feel what Jason's saying. I think from my perspective is how we have been socialized now as a society. Because you were saying earlier that we shouldn't use other person's experience to determine, to make our decisions. But that is one of the ways that we conduct researches. Even when I was in school, we went about and we conducted questionnaires to collect data. And so as the generation coming up as children, we are looking at persons who are married, right? And we are listening to the conversation. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of persons who would like to give us a lot of information on marriage. Majority of it is negative. When I decided to get married, a cousin of mine who I looked up to, he was older than me. He said, "Boy, you're really going and put the noose around your neck. You're going and hang yourself. You're going and kill yourself." And so that is the overarching conversation, at least on the streets. We have a plethora of examples of people who had negative experiences in the marriage relationship, right? From a male's perspective, and this is the post that I posted on Society. From a male's perspective, society is becoming more predominantly female dominated. And not just female dominated, but very feminist in nature. Women are unwilling. Let me be straightforward. Majority of women nowadays are unwilling to submit to male leadership. And that is inside the church and outside the church. Most of the times when women start speaking about submission, it comes with conditions. It's conditional. If my partner possesses these traits and X, Y, and Z, and most of the traits are attached to their happiness. So they are basically looking for someone that possesses some traits or a collection of traits that they calculate and they estimate that that person is going to make me happy, and then okay, I can submit to this person if they do such and such and such. But as soon as that person does not meet their qualifications, they are not willing to submit. And so then men are, as Jason says, he's comfortable with his own company. Why would you voluntarily want to put yourself in a situation with a life partner that and make a vow that says, until death do us part, I am going to love you? Because the love command and the submission command, which basically are the fundamental cornerstones of marriage. The man is commanded to love, and the woman is commanded to submit. And those commands were given by God unconditionally. The love that he's speaking about there is agape love. And so part of the leadership of the man is to love this woman unconditionally. But it does not give you incentive to want to love a woman unconditionally that attaches conditions to submitting to your leadership. And so your leadership is always under scrutiny. And then we have a society where women have been very empowered. The church has invested a lot of years into empowering women, and on the other side, there were very little efforts to empowering men. And so now we have women who have financial power, they have financial security and other forms of security, and you have men who are insecure because it comes back to leadership. Most of the men in society did not have fathers. They did not have male figures to teach them exactly all that it means to be a man.
It's a cultural thing.
And now you are going into an institution that requires your leadership, and you're kind of not too certain of yourself. And the person that you're going into this institution or this relationship with has very high expectations and demands of you. And for some men, it's intimidating. And there are a lot of risk factors involved in it for men. And so when they count the cost of what they have to lose in attached to what they have to gain from the whole ordeal, they tend to lean in the next direction. Like, let me just stay away from this. I could by myself. And I have seen and heard so many negative reports about this thing. So let me just stay by myself. As a matter of fact, married people don't even look happy to me. So
Truth bomb. Charissa, the fellas would have spoken about, and more so Carol coming down to the end about the pressure that is put on men, but yet they're not empowered. So therefore, you have a sense from some men, I don't want to say all, from some men, they feel a bit is intimidated, the right word, like the expectations are so high and they are conditional, right? So you're losing your contented, satisfied single life, and you're going into this married life where, you not only are demands being made of you, but you may not be fully empowered to meet those demands. And as Carol said, those demands are sometimes unreasonable. So where do we go from here,
I thought that those are really good points that you guys made. And, it's something that I've thought about a lot actually, in terms of the way that society now has been empowering women. And for some reason, when we think in order to empower women, we have to belittle men or make sure they don't get any further. The two things can happen at the same time. And I think it's the type of, like, what feminism is now is so unhealthy in comparison to the simple truths that it supposedly started with, which was simply like, women are human beings too, and should have simple rights as the ability to work and to vote and that kind of thing. And now it's just a completely different and very perverse thing that from my perspective. And just how society has shifted overall, where 50 years ago, if you saw someone pregnant, you could assume more than likely that person, you could assume, this person is married, without it being, like, oh, you can't you can't say those things or that type of thing. And now it's a completely, just a very different experience that we're living through. So I oftentimes feel it for men, because I see how unbalanced it is, where I don't think in general we truly value what a man brings to the table, what a biblical man, what a manly man, a man's man, in other words, brings to the table, to the point where we try to make men effeminate. We try to normalize them, doing, I guess, traditionally female things, or dressing a certain way, even like, the fashion and the music, everything that we see is killing men in that way. And then Carol also mentioned, fatherlessness. That is a big problem that we're facing. And if you look at America, where the fatherlessness rate is like about 70% for the Black community, what does that bode for that type of, for our people? What does that bode for society? It's very hard to, well, I could only assume, to be a man without any good manly, examples around you, and try to come up with that for yourself, So I think that we have to be able to acknowledge that men have kind of gotten the short end of the stick, and try to actively work against that. So yeah. That's that, because I think that there's a lot, and I'm kind of passionate about this, because you see the active war against this idea of the nuclear family, and you see men being attacked on every single angle, and women who are supposed to, be loving and comforting, and a sense of a safe haven, we're no longer like that, or we're not being, that's not seen as a good thing, So you would see things saying like, I could be single and I don't need no man, and man is trash, and all men is trash, and that type of conversation is absolutely unhealthy. And so, yeah, but I digress.
Yeah, I think, what I'm hearing repeatedly is culture. The culture plays an important role in terms of what we see as truth, and has been doing that. And feminism in culture has, seeped into the church, and it has caused a lot of women not only to feel empowered, but in some cases even to be unattracted to marriage, because I could do it by myself. I don't need a man, right? I'm not only equal, but I'm probably even better. But God says that the husband is the head of the home, and we have to submit to him. And not only that, is that God created the man competent and able to be the leader. So when we say things like, woman is boss, and these kind of catchphrases, what we're really doing is speaking on truths that are in contradiction to the word of God. So we really have to be careful that the church draws the line between, culture seeping in and actually contradicting the word of God, and really meditate on his word and really know what it says and live that truth, you know. But I really want to narrow down on submission. Alicia, you think women, you know, especially, you know, as they're marrying later, do you think they're willing to submit, you know, unconditionally? Or is it biblical to submit unconditionally?
Let me first go back to the beginning. Or let me just tap into something Carol said quickly in terms of decisions. When we make a decision, most times a decision is made based on a need. And so most times people foster relationships or begin relationships based on a need. We may not know it. We will think because you come into a relationship, it's for love. But it may not be for love. It's a need that may not be met. And you think if I get into the relationship, the need would be met. But I want to just go back into the original plan. And what have been plaguing my mind when in preparation for this is oftentimes we want, and we want the Genesis chapter 2 man. Genesis chapter 2 man or woman.
Before the fall.
Forgetting that we are living in a Genesis chapter 3 world. Yes. And so we oftentimes come across as that of perfection. So we want perfection. Now, submission is not something, and it's not something that is going to come naturally, you know, because of that sin that we have in us. It's not going to come naturally. Because you look at a child, Daddy Carol, your youngest, and you would give that child an instruction. Would that child submit immediately to you as she's growing up, or would you have a little, you know, question or a little defiance or something? But it must be then nurtured. So nurture is important, and what we see happening is as we grow, and I'm standing to be corrected. I think I heard one of our TV evangelists said this years ago. Girls are trained for marriage. Everything. You have to learn to cook. You have to learn to clean. You have to learn to make up the bed. That was in my era. You know,
right. Yeah, just to clarify, yeah.
We were trained, and what the young man was sent out to do, what the boy will be sent out to do is you go and clean the yard, you go and do whatever outside handiwork is needed. And then this young man grows up into a man, and we expect him now to be a husband. When in truth and in fact, he was not groomed to be a husband. So a lot of times we have to start from the beginning, the nurturing process. We also have to look at, as we are looking at submission, it is not a one and done. To say, okay, I get married now, you know, we gone into Corinthians and we say, well, the wife, husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church, and wives submit to your husband, and all that we know. But it takes more than that. It really takes a change of heart in order to submit in its entirety, in its fullness. And it comes right back to, if we have to develop the fruit of the Spirit in our lives, the Galatians chapter 5, if we have to develop that in our lives, we have to work on these things. And the closer we get to what resembles that of Christly characters, or Christly nature, then I could see this thing could simply roll off. And so we have to be always mindful that there is one who is greater in us than he that is in the world. So as much as the world will have the perception that marriage is unattractive and it's ugly, and it is God's design. It is God's design. And so it means that those who have a voice need to put it out there, the importance of it, because what do we always hear? We always hear the negative of it, but are we hearing the positive, knowing that we know it will have troubles? It will have troubles, like everything else. It will have troubles. But what really will be the outcome? It's important, and we have to notice that this is not a Genesis chapter 2 world. So you have the shortcomings of a person, but sometimes I believe we look for perfection, and that is impossible.
Very, very true, Alicia. And I just want to hit it home that nobody's perfect. And the only way we could even begin to think about submitting as a woman or even leading as a man is, through Christ. And he's the only one who's able to give us that unconditional love so that we could then share it with ourselves and others. All right. You spoke about gender roles and how people were nurtured, but I'm sure, I was watching Charissa and even myself, we were not really nurtured in that way, I would say. Well, I can speak for myself, as I grew up with good, healthy marriages, examples of good, healthy marriages, yes, right? However, in terms of nurturing and gender roles, I don't think they were as cut and dry and as specific. So probably I'm seeing Kevin saying it on the chat as well. One of the things we need to do is not only go back to the word and realize that the man is the leader and the head, and it is designed that way. God created marriage, and he created it to be beautiful, and he knows how best it works. And it works best with the husband as the leader. And so we really have to go back to redefining those roles based on the person who created marriage. As Kevin would have said, we need to redefine roles. But how do you do that in a society where education and wealth seems to be so important, and it seems as if women have all the wealth of education and money? Where does the man come in? So therefore, we need to really redefine the way we value people. What do you think, Jason?
I think now I want to say that I am pro men generally, right? But I think the idea that we can separate the church from the existing culture is always going to be problematic, right? We don't get people in church from a field that is separate from everywhere else. The women in church are going to universities. The men in church are going to universities. They are bringing that into the spaces. And I want to say that because if we don't, so I'm not, so hear me clearly because I don't want to sound like a heretic here. Right. But if it is we don't appreciate that there's some dynamics that have changed, we are asking women to submit to men, right? Why? If I am a woman, right, and I come into a situation, let's just for the sake of argument, I'm not making more money than you, but I make as much money as you. But you don't do anything else. So you're not adding any more value to this equation. And you are telling me that I need to submit to you because you are the man. If I were a woman, I would have a problem with that. Now I could tell you for me as a man, it is very, very difficult. And maybe it is something in my upbringing. It is very difficult for me somebody to just tell me something and I go along with it. Things have to make sense. And what I'm saying is, we can't talk about things shifting and gender roles having been tweaked because some things haven't been replicated through teaching, and then say, but we need to stick with the established gender roles because the established gender roles are 3 or 4 generations behind. They have not been passed down the same kind of way. So for me, I think this is a very important consideration. Yes, we want men to be leaders, but we have not taught men to be leaders. We come and just saying, I am the leader based on the fact that I'm a man. And if I had a girl child and she brought home a man that said to her that he has to be the leader because he's a man, not working. That cannot work. That cannot work. I will be a beast of a father-in-law because you cannot tell me that the only reason that you are giving direction to my girl child is because you name it. We have to do better than that. So that's my own take on it.
So it's like a cultural war then in terms of the culture is, and the thing about it is culture is always providing information cues, social media, television shows, you know, you go, you see the movies, you
But let me
see people around you, you're always having
let me
those cultural cues. Yeah.
let me just jump in here then and just see this. We are having a conversation now via Zoom, right? There was a point in time in my life, I could remember in my life, where people said that the computer was the devil. Understand? Things change and we adjust as things go along. And I think sometimes we have to be reasonable. We can't hold on to some things and say we are adjusting to others when everything else around us is changing. I think that is going to create a lot of dissonance and going to create a lot of problems generally.
True.
I want to say something in response to that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Carol, go ahead.
Okay. I agree with Jason partially, and partially I disagree, right? I think the issue is defining leadership and defining submission, or having an accurate definition of what those things should look like in practice, right? Because some men have a male chauvinist, misogynistic perspective of leadership, right? I learned from Dr. Miles Monroe, and I have to agree that the perspective of leadership that we have in the Western Hemisphere, we got it from colonizers. And that is all categories of leadership, whether it be husbands, whether it be politicians, whether it be teachers, pastors. And so if we have a misconception of leadership, then we're gonna have that. How you define a thing is how you practice a thing. And if your definition of leadership is warped, then you're gonna have warped practices, right? And some men, when you listen to them, when they speak about women submitting to them, it actually sounds like subserviency.
Yes, less than.
And that leadership, from a biblical perspective, is not a position of authority or glamour, you know. It's a position of responsibility. You are responsible to take care of those under your charge, right? And when Jesus exemplified that, he laid down his life and he made sacrifices, and leaders have to make sacrifices for those under their charge to make sure that all is well with them, right? And it is true that what he's saying, leadership is not being taught. As a matter of fact, there are all kinds of leadership. There's positional leadership that people will believe that I have this position, so you have to submit to me. But leadership is about influence, right? And also as it pertains to women, they seem to not understand what submission is too. The church has probably, I don't know how much working definitions of submission the church has played around with, right? But the word submission means to respect and honor a man. And I don't think that because your income or your salary exceeds a certain amount, it automatically disqualifies you from respecting and honoring anybody. As a matter of fact, somebody says that you can tell what someone's characteristic is based on how they respect persons who cannot do anything for them. And it's sad that our society has come to a place now where people only respect people who can do things for them. I believe respect is a one-way street. From a biblical perspective, you are responsible for respecting people regardless of if there is disrespect you or not. We teach in society, well, if you respect me, then I will respect you. That makes it easier, of course, but it's not a two-way street from a biblical perspective. You're responsible to God to respect people, period. And so, and that's what I said, it is how society is. Because how can you, as a man, have a positive response to women who have been cultured and nurtured to be belittling and condescending to men? That is what society is screaming now. That is the voice of feminist society is screaming at men right now. attack on maleness, belittle men, discriminate against them. How can you have a positive response to that, as Jason was saying before? How can you know, okay, I'm looking forward, I'm eagerly looking forward to jump into a relationship with this species. And then on the flip side, you have women who, we're not honoring you, we're gonna talk about you behind your back. In your absence, what are you saying about me? How are you injuring my reputation? Is what happens in our relationship? Does it remain in our relationship, or do you go and carry that information abroad and taint my reputation in the eyes of the public or in the eyes of your friends or people? And the thing about it is, in a society where men would always be the perpetrators and women would always be the victim, it is very difficult for a man to redeem his integrity or character in the eyes of the public. And so all of that for me is part and parcel of what submission is respecting and honoring that man, because men ego, that is how God designed. You can't blame me for how God designed me. And he's saying that I designed this creature, and if you respond to this creature like this, then it is going to be well with you in your relationship. If you do not respond to that creature like that, then it is not going to be well with you. Everything is permissible, not everything is beneficial. And so for me, I would never stray from God's instructions. Right. Because as time changes, God's principles do not change. Right. And so we as human beings, we either contaminate or manipulate the instructions of God when God gives us instructions. And the interesting thing about God's instructions is that he doesn't usually tell us, well, do this and this will happen. He expects us to trust him and his wisdom, that when he gives us an instruction, we carry it out, and he's in carrying it out that we would actually see the wisdom of God, you know. But we big man and big woman. So who is God to tell me what to do? I'm going to choose to do what I believe, and the Bible talks about not leaning to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledging God, you know. And I think that is the issue in society today. So I understand, but the Bible actually says that in a case where a man does not demonstrate certain characteristics, it's talking about an unsaved guy, because I believe that when you become a saved, you possess you display certain characteristics. That is what differentiates a churchgoer or a Christian from a non-Christian, their characteristics. And in the case where somebody does not display certain characteristics, the Bible says to women, it is by your respect of that man that you're going to win him over. If you add insult to injury, then you know it's not gonna work out. And one more thing, I know I'm saying a lot, one more thing. There's one type of complete product. Women want a man that is perfect. Vice versa, men want a woman that is perfect. But I was a diamond in the rough. My wife took a risk with me. I was glad that she took a risk with me. But I had a lot of things that needed to be sorted out. And we sorted them out together. I was probably a diamond. I wasn't glitter and I had some dirt on me. And so hardly now, in we would usually see men taking a risk behind women. They might not have all of that, you know, they might say, but I could work with she. But on the flip side, you see women saying, okay, he don't have this and he don't have that and the other, but are willing to work with him. I hardly see that happening. And because of how society is. That is my opinion.
Yeah, the thing, Carol, is we want immediate gratification. We want it now. We want that perfect man now. And, you know, God has designed us to be that helpmeet that empowers. And, you know, even just to bring balance, you're not going to go and marry somebody that you don't think, you know, you can't love unconditionally and allow that and be led by that person. So, you know, from the get-go, you know, you're not looking for the perfect person, but make sure that you're not rushing into it and you're marrying somebody who you are willing, as in the case of the woman, you are willing to have that person lead you. You know, as Jason said, you know, you have to decide from the get-go. You know, time really crept up on us. I feel like if we've been talking for 5 minutes, Charissa?
Yeah, I know that, you know, time going. Just one thing I wanted to say that kind of seems a little simple when you think of it, but in relation to when Jason was originally talking about, you know, if a man should be considered a leader just because he's a man, that kind of thing. I was just reminded that, you know, we have to hold the word of God as our ultimate standard. There's no ifs, ands, buts, or maybes about it. And I think that although there are some things that we're uncomfortable with that we may see in scriptures that we may have to wrestle with, when we ask ourselves why something should be, if it's because the word of God says so, then culture, as much as, you know, we evolve with the times in terms of maybe the method is changed, the message has to remain the same. And so I think we must always remember that our why, as simple as it may seem, is the word of God. And if we don't hold it to that, as that with the importance that it actually holds, or as precious as it actually is, then we would always find ourselves, you know, having an excuse or a reason why. We could always come up with an explanation why something shouldn't be done or why it should be different. But the reality is we have to die to ourselves and do as commanded from the word of God. So that in itself, as we go on our Christian walk, is an active, you know, we're actively submitting to the word of God every single day. And so that's kind of where you get your practice. If you're a Christian and you're not willing to be submissive in marriage, or you're not willing to love and respect in marriage, it's because you haven't been practicing or living out your Christian walk in the way it should. Of course, you will grow as you get older and stuff like that and mature. But I just think those basic principles coming from the word of God just remain the same. And we have to be also careful, because one of the ways society divides us, and why one of the reasons why we see so much issues, is because we have a war with words. We are redefining what words mean. So I may be saying stuff like submission or love and respect, but the way that it's the society has redefined it kind of makes it perverted and that kind of stuff. And so all those things you have to be, you know, aware of as we even have these talks. So yeah.
Yeah, and just to endorse what you said, you know, God created us. Genesis 1, he created us. He created marriage. And therefore, he knows the best guidelines to have the best relationship. And therefore, when he designed men, and if he's saying, you know, men should lead, he knows how he designed them. He designed them to lead. And therefore, we have to trust his judgment and his wisdom. But from a practical sense, we also have a role in terms of the attractiveness of marriage, to show good examples and to show healthy marriages, using his guidelines and begin to now empower our men to be the leaders that they were called to be, because as you said, they need that empowerment. And I think in a lot of ways, we go to the social media, we spend more time on social media than we do in God's word, which is his wisdom, is where his wisdom is. You know, so I think that is one of the fundamental reasons why we have deviated, because we spend more time listening to the word, reading people posts and looking at the pictures than we do in the word and prayer. You know, so that's something we need to look at. So just the time has gone, but you know, we didn't even get to talk about the fact that some women, you know, they're waiting to hear from God, and that will be our next hour again. You know, why some women haven't gotten married, because they kissed dating goodbye, and therefore that meant that they were waiting to hear from God, and you know, that voice never came, and the men got married or they went on with life. But so many reasons, we only kind of scratch the surface. We definitely probably have to have a part 2. But I'm glad we really got into it, at least the aspect in terms of, I think, which is a big one in terms of submission. What you will think it's a negative word, but we really have to do some more homework in terms of what it means, you know, and how we can submit today. All right, so closing remarks from, well, we could begin where we started with Alicia, closing remarks.
Yeah, sure. Just about 2 things I want to make mention. Methods do change, but principles remain the same. So methods will change in how we do things, but God's principles are always sure. Secondly, coming from a pastoral position, marriage is ordained by God. It is a lot of people today, though they may have their own beliefs and based on experiences, negative experiences, whether it's their experience or the experience of others, marriage is still very valuable today. It is very relevant today. It is required today. And I say required because there's a point, a direction that persons are going to think that marriage between male and female is very, very relevant for the purpose, what it was really created for, and to build a life together, not to settle. Marriage is not to settle. Let me just say this, it is not to settle down. This is the point where you build. And I really pray that, you know, as young people are coming up and the single unmarried people are coming up, they will see the value in loving another person. But you cannot submit or love another person if you first do not love God. It boils down to that, because you will have to be obedient to him. And if you're obedient to him, then you will know how to treat that person with respect. You would know how to treat that person with love. You would know how to treat that person with compassion, etc., etc. So yeah, it really boils down to you and your submission to God, and then you submit to anybody else.
And Jason, how does submission or men leading look today? How does an empowered man who's ready to lead or lead your daughter hypothetically, how does he look?
I think he is a person who is emotionally intelligent, somebody who understands empathy, somebody who is able to make decisions based on proper evaluation of situations. But ultimately, that person would have to love my daughter wherever it is, and love my child in a way that continues to protect her. So for me, that is, and I just want to say this, I may disagree with the panel on this, say with women having an issue with submission. I don't think women have an issue with submission generally. I think women submit when they have something or somebody to submit to. And I don't think it's a hard thing at all. I think women submit easily once they feel comfortable in a situation where they can submit. So, yes.
But you now start another topic, because once you're married already and you done make the choice, then you know you're kind of in a jam there. If you're not married as yet, then that's a different story.
Well, I think a wife will find it easy to submit to a man that she respects. And I'm not saying that this is going to be all the time. I'm not saying that there's not going to be disagreement. What I'm saying is, I think that women submit to men that they feel comfortable submitting to. And but I have never been married, so what do I know?
Well, thanks for your input nevertheless. And the thing is, you know, Alicia said, you know, we persevere, you know, once you're married, you know, with the love of God, you are able to submit to somebody, even though they have not yet reached. I don't know if that's, you know, kind of was a good response, but Carol,
I agree with you. I agree with you with that statement that women, if a man leads well, I just would add one word, a healthy woman. If a man is leading well, a healthy woman would not have an issue in submitting, because it's like respecting somebody that respects you. It makes it easier to submit to somebody that is leading well. It makes it harder for a woman to submit to a man that is not displaying certain characteristics. So I agree with him. But that was it. That is what the culture endorses, that, you know, once he then displaying certain characteristics, don't submit to him. You're already married to him. Why did you choose? You wasn't saying that before you married him. You're married to him now. And so what does the institution require you? What the laws of the institution, what does it require you to do according to God? But I agree with him because I have daughters, and I would like to see that the men who I handing over, I have to hand over, I have to bless that, you know, I not going and raise my daughters and protect them for so long and then just hand them over to the demise. I want to see that those men display certain characteristics, and I would feel comfortable. I think any father, any logical father would be like that. But my closing remarks would be as it pertains to gender roles. I thought I was biblical. I used to try to find scriptures to define or to support my perspective or my bias on that. And I realized lately that the gender roles that our society subscribes to now, that they're holding on so tightly to, and they don't want to let go and they don't want to change, are actually not biblical but cultural. There's no way in the Bible that says a woman should wash, cook, and clean and still work at 8 to 5.
Amen.
And I think that those are basic necessities and basic skill that every human being should have learned to survive. So I think there's a lot that we need to unlearn and a lot that we need to learn as we go forward. And as a friend of mine said, anything that you go into, the more knowledge that you have about it increases your chances of success on it. So we owe it to ourselves and to our future spouses to learn as much about marriage and ourselves and the institution, loving ourselves, loving God, and equipping ourselves to love somebody in the way that we would like to be loved. And I think if we do that, the chances of success are going to be much higher. And, we're going to enjoy our marriage.
Right. Totally agree. The ideal is we prepare for marriage. The church, the family prepares the man and the woman, both of them for marriage. The man to lead, the woman to be that helpmeet, and for them to even, show each other that unconditional love. Because if you read in Ephesians, we are actually supposed to submit to each other. Yeah, some people go right to the wife submit, but love. The thing that is hard or difficult is when you have to love somebody and they don't meet all your conditions or all your requirements. And that is where the submission comes in, because you say, even though I don't feel to love you because, I'm offended or there was some gap or lack in your character or something like that, I still choose to love you and I still choose to submit. And as we continue to love each other unconditionally, so really and truly, as Alicia said, there's no perfect man and woman. We prepared our best we could. And where there is, that gap or that downfall, we show that unconditional love. Charissa, closing remarks?
Yeah, I would just say that, your singleness is important, and it's important for us to do that well and to be wise in that season. That's where a lot of your growth happens. Not even necessarily to be prepared for marriage, but just to be the person that God wants you to be, to serve Him. At the end of the day, our purpose is all about giving glory to God and bringing honor to Him and building up His kingdom. And so we do that whether we're single or married. But a lot of people fail in their marriages because they weren't prepared in their singleness. A lot of people enter marriages because they can't find themselves to be content in their singleness, and so they match up with persons who, if they were just patient, they would have realized that God wouldn't have wanted them for you. And just one of the things, just lastly, I would say in relation to, we're impacted by what happens in the world. And I remember I heard a pastor said he was talking about homeschooling, why he would homeschool his kids. But in essence, he said, you can't send your children to Caesar whole day and then be surprised when they come home as Romans. So for that, I would say, in respect to this, is like the stuff that we taken in when you had spoken about social media. We can't spend our whole lives just feeding from the stuff that's outside and then be surprised when we're messed up inside, when the persons that are in our space who we think should know better are messed up. So, just be wise with how we spend our time and what we feed ourselves is what I would say. to end it.
Yeah, thanks very much. And I think a marriage, a healthy marriage, a marriage that will cause other single persons to be attracted to marriage is where, even though my spouse made a mistake or is having a challenge, I still love them. I still try to empower them and bring them up. And to me, that's what attracts people. They're like, wow, you love that person through it. And now both of you all are even more beautiful for it. So I would say, we prepare our best, but, once we have made that commitment before God, we use what he has given us, the tools he has given us to really grow our marriage, which is loving each other and submitting to each other unconditionally as we continue to grow together towards perfection, because neither one is perfect. All right, so thanks very much to the panel, Ms. Alicia, Mr. Carol, Charissa, Ms. Charissa, and Mr. Jason. Just before you leave, I want to let you all know Charissa has her YouTube channel. You all can check it out. She has some great stuff there. And I know Jason, he has his podcast, Jace. And let's, support them, continue to support them as they continue to prepare people, or should I say, empower people to be the best that we were designed to be. All right. And Carol, he has his music ministry. You can check him out on YouTube at Carol Voice. And, we continue to encourage each other with our talents and our gifts. So thanks so very much for your time, and God bless.
Yeah, God bless.
All right, folks. Well, I'm heading out.
Yes, all the best to you.
Right.
Jason.
Yeah, girl. I have to figure out my internet before it is a start, because clearly I am having some issues this evening. So anyhow, you all take it easy, and I will see you all around.
Yeah, bye. Keep good.
All right. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Have a good afternoon, good evening, that is.
Yeah, let us.
All righty.
I don't know when I'll get in the part 2. When I'll do a postmortem to this, no? Or
Yeah, we'll have it another time because Jason has his podcast now.
Okay.
We are off live, right?
Okay, let me check.
I don't think so. I think we're still on.
Okay, let me go to the Zoom.
All right.
All right, I think I'll just have to end it. Sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
that's all right.